Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and you saw this week that at MSNBC they let go of Goldie Taylor, who was a regular contributor for the network, and this led some people to wonder if this is kind of going to be a trend, given that President Obama is no longer going to be in office after 2016. And to really kind of dig into this, I wanted to talk to the person who actually laid this idea out on the table originally, my perpetual partner, my homegirl, Miss Yvette Carnell. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing really good. So I have to give you credit for this. I can't even act like I was the one who originated this idea. You were writing about this on Breaking Brown. You were talking about how basically many African American pundits were in high demand when President Obama was elected a few years ago, and that your prediction is that as Obama phases out, you'll see them kind of phase out. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think the problem is that, like, what we have to understand about white media, mainstream media, in the advent of Obama is that a lot of pundits, a lot of black pundits especially, were brought on board to these white news organizations more as sort of race explainers than people who were there to talk about news or talk about world affairs or anything. You were brought on to kind of explain black people to the white mainstream, or specifically to explain this black president to the white mainstream, as opposed to anything else. So, we are sort of these race interpreters, race explainers, as if black people are speaking in a language or saying something or crying out in a way that white people just can't understand, which isn't true in and of itself. That means something that's innately different about us. And that's how they were brought on. So I think, and this is not saying anything against Goldie Taylor or what her contribution was. What I'm saying is that these people who were brought on as sort of race explainers, as sort of, what my friend Pascal Robert says, and I think he's quoting someone else, tour guide, these racial tour guides who were brought in are going to be kind of shifted out, and there's going to be sort of a whitewashing of media as we go forward.
Interesting. So you don't need the tour guide anymore because you're no longer on your vacation, right? You're no longer in the resort
Sorry,
that
so
you. Right. They're no longer visiting the land of Blackville. It's kind of like we're moving back to wherever we were before. And I agree with you. I know that despite the fact that my PhD's in finance, I can say the vast majority of my mainstream media appearances were on topics that related to race, and maybe only in a few exceptions can I think of times where I felt that I was there to really talk as, say, a scholar or as a human being, versus the many times where I was brought in kind of as a black person, where if did not have black skin, the appearance would not have taken place. And I also know that it's you had some pundits that really rose through the ranks as a result of Obama's ascension, right? You had two that come to mind immediately would be my friends Roland Martin and Mark Lamont Hill. I remember Roland was doing a local show in Chicago, and he happened to be close to the Obamas. And as the Obamas kind of rose in prominence, it almost seemed that Roland's connection to the Obamas, allowed him to get so many more opportunities. But then you saw when he had that clash with the liberal establishment, Roland was back toward News One, which I'm sure he's doing fine. I mean, I'm not saying Roland's not doing well, but it does seem that you can ask that question. What happens with many of these black pundits when Obama's no longer in office? What happens to Melissa Harris Perry? What happens to Reverend Al Sharpton? What is your prediction on that?
I don't think you can have this conversation at all without mentioning Torre. Torre was a guy who was basically doing pop kind of, music, pop culture explanations on MTV or whatever. And all of a sudden, with the advent of Dylan Radigan, who gave him space to have his commentary, he became like a political pundit with essentially no background that I know of, in hard politics. So I think probably going forward, I think those people will be the ones who you will see kind of, fall to the wayside sooner. I think strong people with strong skills and strong chops will remain at the helm because they can still bring in a crowd without having to have a conversation about Obama. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a strong writer regardless of whether Obama is around. So he will be there. So you'll see people who are good in their own right without Obama stick to where they are, even if they played a role in like being race explainers or whatever. But I think other people who aren't as strong, I think you'll see them kind of not have their contracts renewed. And I'm not saying that about Goldie at all. I think I actually enjoyed Goldie Taylor. But what I'm saying is that I think despite whatever her contribution was, you're not going to necessarily be able to escape that. Even if you are contributing something that's good, she's just as good as, most of the white people I see on these networks, but she's not needed anymore because this is how she's viewed. She's viewed as an explainer of, explainer of blackness, among other things. And that's how they view the contribution. So I think as we go forward, some of these people will kind of turn out and fall by the wayside.
Now, Touré, going back to Touré, who I just so politely referred to as the Kim Kardashian of social commentary. He wrote that ridiculous book on post-racial America, right? What was the title of that book? Remind me.
Something about post-racial. I don't know. It was some post.
and the funny thing, and I'm not trying to laugh at the brother, but he's just so comical. Is the funny thing is that when you talk about that whole post-racial America conversation, it was interesting because people were really having that conversation for about 6 months after Obama got elected. And then after they saw just how ridiculous some of these racist white folks got when they had a black president, I mean, how they were losing their minds. Literally, by the end of that first year, nobody was ever naive enough to believe that we're in a post-racial society. It's so interesting. It's like that person who's sick and they think that they're better, so they stop taking their medication, and then they have a relapse, and you just know, okay, get him back on his meds.
Yeah, and I think Touré would say, well, I never necessarily said that we were in a post-racial society. I just kind of explored the idea. And that's really an idea given what we know about America, given what we know about American history, given what we know about the state of Black America and Black affairs. That's really a conversation we never should have had because it's woefully naive to even have a conversation about that. Just because one man has been elected president, that this we have this, it gives credence to this sort of idea that because Obama's elected president that we have somehow arrived. And that's what black people played into during early 2008, 2009. Obama is here, so we're here too. And, we have arrived and we arrived with him. And what we saw in the Obama administration is that not only did we not arrive with him, we did worse under him. So how do you grapple with that and the initial post-racial analysis? And I think one thing that people are also arriving at this point, another reason that you'll see a lot of black pundits fall apart is that they were wrong. Touré was wrong. Everybody who said that, comparing, which Ta-Nehisi Coates did, kind of comparing Obama to Malcolm X in any kind of sphere is wrong. Everybody was. I've never seen another political event where so many black pundits have been so wrong. And it's not even just pundits. I remember Chris Rock saying, Obama's going to hook us up, whatever, in the second term. All of that stuff is wrong. So I think as we revisit, who Obama is, what he was, what his legacy was, and it's not a good one if you ask for my estimation, you're going to see that, a lot of these people that we trusted to kind of give us commentary and speak from a space of black politics were actually speaking from a place of black identity and actually sort of looking at Obama through a kind of Messiah-like lens. And that's a problem. And I think we don't need that kind of influence in the black community because it hasn't boded well for us.
Well, I agree with you. I think, and from the very beginning, one thing I can say is that you always were very consistent about making sure that we maintained our sobriety, if you will, as Obama went into office, because a lot of people really lost their minds, white and black. I remember when I spoke at a church in Long Island on the day that Obama was inaugurated, and I remember that the choir was singing the song "We Shall Overcome." And they changed the words of the song from "We shall overcome" to "We have overcome."
Wow.
And on that same day, I remember a lady came out and she was so excited, and she had bought 2 pictures. I said, "Those are nice pictures. What do you got there?" And she said, "Oh, I got a picture of picture of President Obama I just bought." And she said, "I'm gonna put it on my wall right next to Martin Luther King and Jesus." I kid you not. I'm not making this up.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It was amazing to see this, and it's just so tragic because we were kind of like the little kids who found out that there was no Santa Claus. That it wasn't, that politics is not as wonderful and as pure as we wanted to believe that it is. I don't think anybody can look at Obama's record when it comes to what's been done for African Americans and say that this man has made our lives better. I think that his life has been made better. I think that certain elite individuals' lives have been made better. I mean, even if you look at, say, a Melissa Harris Perry, let's say Melissa Harris Perry's contract isn't renewed after Obama's out of office. Melissa, she will have gotten a good 8 years, six to 8 years out of the Obama presidency. That's a pretty good run, of opportunity and income. So, I think that what we have to understand is that there's a difference between the status of the black elite and the status of the black community. Those are not the same thing. And to really help people understand the analogy, I mean, imagine if white Americans said that when wealthy white people are doing well, all of America is doing well. We know that that's not true. We know that Wall Street and the rich are doing extremely well, and working class Americans are struggling. Well, the same thing's happening in the black community. You've got, right here in Chicago where I live, you got a lot of black elite who rode that Obama wave, who are making millions of dollars off of this, but now some of whom have experienced the downside of politics, like Jesse Jackson's son, who I think was unfairly vilified, because it's kind of hard to imagine somebody going from being an Obama administration insider and a potential senator to suddenly being a convict. The fact is that a lot of these politicians could be defined as convicts. A lot of them break the law. A lot of them go outside the rules. So I don't consider Jesse to be any different from the rest of the people that he works with. But anyway, bottom line, last point I'll make on this is, I think as we move forward, we have to look back and be honest, about what lessons we've learned. We have to really be clear about who was right, who was wrong. We have to understand that for the most part, unless you can provide evidence to prove that Obama has really improved the status of the black community, the fact is that you have not won this debate. When Cornel West was originally saying the things he was saying, everybody gave him a hard time. Oh, you're just a hater, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Or when you and I would say something about the Obama presidency back in 08, 09, we would instantly get these drones that would just pop in, to defend the president. Oh, don't talk about my president. I love my president. I mean, really talking about him like he was a relative or a boyfriend or a buddy. He ain't your damn buddy. He's a politician. And politicians will screw you if you don't advocate for yourself. It doesn't make Obama a good person or a bad person. It makes him a politician. But here's the thing, though, and I'll say this, and then I'm really done, I promise. When you compare the vitriol that you would receive back in 08, 09, when you were just not even critical of the Obama administration, just objective, you compare that to now, it's like night and day. Now you could say the same thing today that you would have said in 09 that would have gotten you attacked, damn near banned by all your friends on Facebook. And now those people are quiet. They don't say anything. You know why they don't say anything? Because they have nothing. They don't have anything. They don't have any evidence to make their point. They have this man. Unfortunately, the president gave them so little to work with, and now he's probably just looking at you like, I never told you that I was the man that you wanted to make me into. You just read into me what you wanted to believe that I was, and I'm not that guy. And I think people have to understand that. Exactly. I'll let you get the last word, Yvette. I didn't mean to go on.
Yeah, Obama's legacy was going to be getting us out of Iraq, even though those plans had already been put in place by George W. Bush. But okay, he brought us home. So now you have the guy who took us out of Iraq, taking us into Syria. You have this guy, this president, who, and I ask people this all the time, did you ever think Obama's FBI would prosecute Jesse Jackson Jr., the guy who basically stepped aside in order to allow Obama to run for senator? Because Jesse Jackson Jr. had his eye on that. Did you ever think, and I'm not saying that Jesse Jackson Jr. is innocent. I'm not even speaking on that, but just speaking on what you thought at the beginning of this administration. Did you ever think that this would be the administration that added Assata Shakur, Black Panther, back to the FBI's most wanted list? Did you ever think that this would be the administration that allowed banks to get off after systematically targeting the African American community with subprime mortgages and subprime loans to pad AAA rated, to pad them as AAA rated derivatives when really they were trash? So when you look at this, when you look at Obama's legacy and Eric Holder's legacy, Black people have fallen behind. And you can't, there's no way now in 2014 to make the case that people making in 2009. The case that people making in 2009 was Yvette, wait and see. You know, if you give this guy some time, he's going to do the right thing. If you let him get reelected and he doesn't have to be reelected again, he's going to do the right thing. And what did we get? We got this charity, this My Brother's Keeper, which asked a bunch of white charities to give money to little struggling Negroes. When really and truthfully, the money should be given from the government. If you're going to help black boys, you should help them from a government. Or you are the president, the government. This is what you do, or at least this is what you advocate for. Because this is why I tell people all the time. People say, "Well, Yvette, he couldn't do it. He couldn't make it happen." Well, at least fight the good fight. Like, fight the good fight for me. If you fight the good fight and fail, I will still love you. You will still be my dude because you put it out there. But you don't come. Black people in this country have been disenfranchised by government, not by charities. So when you're disenfranchised by government, it's the job of government to make you whole. The government gave us redlining. The government gave us Jim Crow and all these other things. The government allowed white people, allowed white races in the South called Dixiecrats to systematically keep us out of federal programs. So it's your job to put it back in there. And a few years of affirmative action doesn't do that. So if this is all, and I told people early on that this is what the first black president is giving us. This is what he's signaling. And if we don't do something soon, we're screwed. So we didn't do anything soon. We're screwed. You shouted me down. You elevated up people who were like, yeah, he's my man. That's my president. And so that's what you get. You have this whole naive community of black people who are like not politically mature, who have been just sort of brought into mainstream news to kind of cheer for the president and talk about how bad Republicans are. And at the end of the day, you may have a psychological bump. You may feel psychologically better because that's what you did, but we have nothing for it. A psychological feel-good moment, a symbolic moment gives us nothing. It doesn't feed you. It doesn't give you a job. It doesn't give you political power. And if there's any lesson that we can learn from this what we're in right now is to stop being so symbolic and focus on things that actually matter, like policies.
Well, and I think to really bolster the point that you just made, which I think was excellent, is we have to get away from this idea, that somehow when you make that remark about what the government did or did not do, that we're asking the government for charity. Because white Americans were asking for governmental help when their unemployment rate got to what 7, 8, 9%. They act like that was the biggest crisis they'd ever seen in their lives. Well, remember, black unemployment is typically in the double digits. It's typically high, double that of white Americans. But to really highlight the economic contrast, you had white Americans who were justifiably outraged by 7, 8, 9% unemployment, but black people expected to remain silent about 14, 15, 16% unemployment, and also unemployment rates as high as 30, 40% in the black male communities in urban areas. So that just really tells you something about the double standard that still exists, not just amongst all of America, but I'm really talking about with us. When you have people within our own community who say, why are you complaining? Be quiet. You're going to mess things up for this president. I don't give a damn about the political fortunes of one person when weighed against the fortunes of 40 million people. You cannot compare the two things. Stop elevating this man like he's a king and respect yourself. Respect your children. Love your children as much as you love that man on your wall. Because guess what? When your children are out here starving to death, that man is not going to come save you. He's not going to come help you. So that's my point. It's not to disparage what somebody else is doing, or to not congratulate what President Obama has accomplished. It's to say love your children as much as you love that man that you see on TV, because he ain't thinking a whole lot about you. He's taking care of his children too. You need to be doing the same. That's my final point. I'm done.
I'm done too.
All right. That means we're both done. All right. Well, I am Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and this is Miss Yvette Carnell from BreakingBrown.com. And we just wanted to just talk to you real quick. So I'm glad you stopped by. And for those of you who are listening, I really appreciate all of your time. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.